Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the late one in review this evening on the Thursday, the 11th of March, 2021. And let's have a good show this evening with my guests who's going to come on tonight, which is Keisha Allen, and also Mr. Anthony Francis. Dr. David Burton he's on call, which is the duties of a doctor at this time, and we need the doctors and the medical fraternity to get going. But without further ado, based on time, what we're going to do, we're going to go straight into the program today, because there's lots of topical news as we have seen over the week. Uh, the whole big debate regarding the big opera interview, a topic which I try to stay away from, but it is a news and a topic which I believe can be delved in and addressed from different angles instead of from the sensational aspect of it. And what we're going to talk about today is not about whether it is true or whether it is lie, but it's about the discussion and the debate that it brings up and some of the lessons that maybe can be learned at the same time. We have seen Piers Morgan walked off his program. Trust me, Silburn will not walk off his program, even if Keima, Keisha, or Anthony try to tear me apart tonight. I will not walk off my program. You know what I'm saying? So without further ado, let me just bring in the gang. Hey, how are you doing, Anthony, Keisha, and Keima? How are you guys doing?
Hey, all good here. Good to see you
again. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello is a program. Hello. That's a French program. That I say this only once. No, that's the wrong program, isn't it? That's Faulty Towers, isn't it? Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for coming again for this week. And, we have had some very interesting, coverage. And it seems like at one point I was thinking to myself, where is COVID? It's just like when people are saying, where is the flu since COVID has come around? And then all of a sudden, like, no discussion is about COVID. It's about Meghan, Harry, and Piers Morgan. Did I say Piers Morgan? Piers Morgan. So, guys, tell me, first of all, how was the week? Keisha.
How was my week? Good. Yeah, no different.
Huh?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Keima, can you hear me?
No, you go ahead. You keep talking, Keisha.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I think she said I was on mute, but yeah, I think it was a good week. I mean, it's the week that I had to take my son to school, so again, it's mentally having to readjust of getting up early in the morning, try to get him ready for school, and hope and pray that everything goes well.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been a smooth week.
Okay, Anthony, how was your week, sir?
Yeah, for me, it's been the usual week in the sense of nothing really too much to report on. The only thing I'm thinking of at the moment is I've been to see my father today, who his 98th birthday is coming up. So
Yes.
We're looking forward to celebrating that with him.
And I know your dad, because I believe his birthday is around the same time as mine, because Aries, of course, as we all recognize and we all agree, is one of the best months. Actually, it's the best month of the year. And Anthony, you would not disagree with your father that your father was born in the greatest month. Yes, your dad is your dad. You can't disagree.
I can't argue with that, can I?
So, and Keima, thank you for coming back. I know you're on a sabbatical, but somehow Piers Morgan left, and I don't know if it's the money from Piers Morgan that pulled you back in. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's good to be back tonight. It's my week has been it's a quiet one, and as Keisha mentioned about, it's been school returning, children returning to school this week, so that's been a really big thing for in my household, getting my daughter back to school. So that other than that, there isn't anything else major going on this week.
But anyway, I go straight into it, because this week we have seen that explosive debate in regards to Oprah Winfrey creating a massive coup. I would say a coup based on the fact that she's a top lady and she got Harry and Meghan sitting down together and talking about their life and their experiences in the Buckingham Palace, and talk about the aspect of racism, the aspect of how they feel. But one of the things that I was looking at, and Anthony and I was talking, and we look at it from a different angle, like the impact of this on the royal family in the long term, the double standards in how Kate has been treated in comparison to Meghan, and will this help the race and equality debate going forward? Because we're just coming out of a massive summer whereby we had the George Floyd issue there, and a lot of Black Lives Matters, and then right there in the midst of it, where the UK also was a key factor, we're seeing allegations about the Buckingham Palace, the heart of this whole thing. If I throw this out, Anthony, if you can lead, how do we take this discussion? Instead of us going down the sensational route.
Yeah, well, without going down the sensational route, I think one of the key things that we can really focus on from that interview, and what was mentioned today by William when he was asked the question, was the royal family racist? And his reply was, no, we're not a racist family. And I think the key thing here is that clearly there's been an allegation by Meghan with regards to a reference to the colour of what Archie was going to be. But I think a wider context is really the whole debate around race in the UK now, because before, with Black Lives Matter, that was a political activity in terms of people really wanting to see certain equalities ironed out. But I think here what we're seeing with Meghan is more of a question around, well, and I think actually Harry alluded to it when he was asked that he now understands the lived experience that Meghan has been going through, and that's one of the reasons why he's actually packed his bags and moved out to the US now. And I think really that's the question we should be looking at, is how can we improve the real issues around race in the UK, and this issue around whether or not there is sort of an institutional racism potentially within the royal family, because this isn't something which has been a small issue. I mean, Meghan's made some really serious allegations,
yes,
and Harry has actually acted upon them in a way whereby she has said it's affected her mental health. He has said he's seen it through her lived experience, and as a consequence, he's gone elsewhere. So I think there are a number of key points that we can really touch on, but I think it does allow all of us in the wider population to sort of look at race, and also look at how we treat mixed race families, and how we perceive them in our society. And I think that's quite an important issue.
Yeah. Keisha, what's your take on the whole debate? And I don't know if you have watched it. If you had watched it, I mean, I didn't get to watch it because I was fast asleep, believe it or not. What's your take on the whole thing?
It's a lot to take in, actually. I mean, let me start with Anthony's point regarding the allegation, the lived experience of Meghan that she spoke about. And what greatly concerned me mainly is that she spoke about her mental illness. And I am of the view that we are, or at least this nation, have a problem with dealing with certain type of people, like Meghan, or ethnic minorities, when they speak on certain issues such as race or mental illness. I am very surprised that when she spoke about these serious matters and how it affected her, that we didn't have this great compassion in the news or in the media following what she said. What we have is an outpour of people not believing her. People accusing her of bringing bringing the queen, or the royal family down, and as if it's intentionally trying to cause a coup, as you pointed out, which of course was never the intention. The intention was never to overthrow the queen's kingdom. The intention is to speak on a matter that actually affected both Meghan and Harry. And you would have thought that having disclosed what is the real reason why they left the UK, that people would have had more of a sense of compassion. But what we saw is, as far as I'm concerned, what I've been seeing in the news is a complete opposite. And it just makes me feel that we have a long way to go in this country to put matters right. I don't think that people recognize the serious issue when it comes to institutional racism. The fact that they said that somebody in the royal family or the firm raised a concern about Archie's the color of the unborn child's skin. that is a concern to them. It's a matter of, it's a concern. Why would you even consider that? I know from a Black perspective, Black people, we thought there's an issue around colorism in our household, but I cannot understand why they raise it as a form of a concern, like it's going to be a problem. When she said that there's a concern, to me, I've interpreted that there's a potential problem having a Black child as a potential prince, and that is a matter of concern. And unfortunately, I don't believe that it was reported, in the best and positive way. I think Britain missed an opportunity not having to deal with certain matters like race relations and mental health head on.
If before I go into Keima, that allegation which was made about discussions around the color of Archie's skin or what tone it's going to come out to be, I think it was very clear that it wasn't. No allegations was made specifically to someone, and there's a discussion. And what is missing, I must say, is a context. When one said the context was missing, Keima, what do you think? Was the context missing, or is it that because sometimes you drop something into a pot and stir water, and the question is, hang on a second, where is this going? I'm just looking at it from an objective perspective at the same time.
I see. I thought about this, and I think it even, so on the media they were saying it's concern or interest. For me, I can't understand why would you be even bother to, what would it even come to your mind to even think about what the child skin would look like? I mean, it's we're talking about a baby here, and of course we know Black people hue could be varied. If you, because we've got white or white person or Black person together, it could be closer to the white or closer to the Black or somewhere in the middle. I mean, to have any sort of conversations around that sort of really bothers me. I can't understand why would anybody want to do that. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't settle well with me in itself. I mean, some people could justify it out of interest, but I can't see why would you want to have that sort of conversation anyway in the first place. But that's the one point when it comes to race. But the other part that she's saying, I mean, of course, we know race could be direct and it could be indirect racism. And I think as well, what Megan was trying to point out is that she was treated differently from her sister-in-law, Kate, when it comes to media reporting, but also differently when it comes to patronage and titles. And, for example, she talked about, how Archie wasn't going to be given a title and she couldn't understand why. And now, you've got a lot of people coming out in the press and say, well, it was correct. When you think, well, the Queen actually changed the rules so that Princess Charlotte and Louis could get the title. So why Archie being different? So this is the kind of thing that people need to understand when it comes to racism. Racism, sometimes, particularly in this country, can be very, very subtle. And people on the outside, unless you understand the full picture and looking at it as the holistic part of it. And she's saying around the same time they were talking about what potentially the baby's race would be. So that to me, baby color would be. So to me, that's why she's saying this is the picture of what racism looked like in the institution. And people, this week you hear a lot of pushback, particularly in the right-wing newspaper. It's like there's a PR battle to see who could win the hearts and minds at the moment that's going on. You see a lot of people, particularly the Daily Mail, you hear a lot of people coming out saying, oh, Megan is lying. How could you look at somebody who said to you that, I've had I had mental illness, I was suicidal, and you're going to say to them, you're lying? I mean, this is just something, automatically you just think, where's the heart and the compassion for a woman who's happened to be pregnant at the time, by the way, and you're going to come out and say, the person is lying. For me, that to me deeply bothers me in terms of our consciousness and what sort of society we are living in. Yeah. If we have no compassion for just the basic of things. So that troubles me in terms of some of the things that came out of the interview.
Yeah. Okay, before I go on to Anthony, just welcome Lorna Foster. Good night, everyone, on the live. Peace and blessing. And also to hi to Michelle from the States. Peace and blessing, Silver, and those on the panel. Lorna Foster said, Megan says she did not get any support regarding her mental health issues. Despite asking for help, she was ignored. She basically was left to the mercy. Harry was a fantastic support. Truly sad indeed. And Michelle Clark said, My say is this: is the black woman. She should have known better than to go there. Do your research before your union with the family. Last but definitely not least, learn your history. It is a black woman person. You shouldn't be in this predicament. Anthony.
Can I just touch on that point quickly?
Okay,
I
all right.
mean, I saw
Which one?
the
Which one?
Facebook,
Which one? Michelle.
the last message about Megan shouldn't have gone there.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason why I want to raise that is I saw a message that a few days ago, following the whole Megan saga, and someone said, "Oh, when my child was much younger, I used to joke and say I want my child to grow up and marry a prince." And someone, I think somebody like in the family member, an older person, told her off to say, "Never wish like a curse on your child."
Yes.
And I was taken aback by that, because I was saying to myself, what if this child grew up, went to university, and fall in love with somebody, who just so happened to be a real prince? How do you say to that to your daughter that, nah, you shouldn't really go with him because he's a prince, and that means this is what's normal like to happen? Surely we should be looking at Harry as a prime example. If you find a prince who will go over and aboard and above for you, that is a prince that you want to marry, because it's amazing. It's all dropping actually that this prince, all his life he's been a prince. He doesn't know another life, and he's give up a whole kingdom for this woman from America. It's an incredible story. You never hear this story in fairy tale, and so it's difficult for me to say that she should know better, because when you say that, you can't stop somebody from loving somebody. I think love is a beautiful thing. So I think it's a good story in the end, because they found love and they're still together.
Anthony, let's bring you in, Anthony. You have heard the views there, and even the point that Michelle was saying that black women shouldn't go there. You're being involved, especially on the cutting edge of more black professionals need to be CEOs, and some people is it a case whereby don't go there, man, just stay safe in the safe zone? It's about integration, isn't it? It's about love, isn't it, at the same time? I mean, is that a fair comment what Michelle says? But these are comments going around at the same time. But
well, listen, I mean, well, first of all, this isn't the first time this has happened, as we all know. Obviously, Edward gave up his kingdom. I mean, he actually did give up the kingdom. He was going to be king, and married Mrs. Wallace, and actually decided that he wanted to give it up for an American divorcee, which is exactly what Harry's Wallace doing. So there has been a precedent there. But I think the key thing here is that he found love with Mrs. Simpson. Harry has found love with Meghan. And to be honest, I mean, it doesn't matter that he's a prince or not a prince. If, as mentioned, if two people meet each other and they fall in love, at the end of the day, they're two individuals. Just because one has a title and one doesn't, it doesn't mean that they can't find a union together, which is what they've done. And as has been pointed out, he has actually made an ultimate sacrifice by actually going and supporting her, rather than perhaps staying in a situation that might be more toxic and detrimental. And also, you have to bear in mind that he did point out in the interview that his father, Charles, ought to have maybe been slightly more sympathetic towards him, because he obviously went through the same experience with Diana. So he was acutely aware of maybe some of the pressures that Diana was under that led her to do the things that she ultimately did. So, I feel there should be a lot more, and I think it's been mentioned in the chat, there should be a lot more compassion given to Meghan, but also a lot of support to Harry as well, for, as also been pointed out, the fact that he has not necessarily stuck with her, but he has supported her and has decided actually that love is stronger than the political ideology that comes from his birthright, and stay in the UK and simply play the firm. He wants to actually play families with Meghan and his son.
You said something, Anthony, that Diana and Charles went through the same sort of process. That wasn't racism, yes?
No, that wasn't racism, but that was more to do with the fact that Diana was under a lot of pressure as an individual coming into the royal family, not perhaps understanding, because she was young, the pressures of the so-called firm. And also, once she became a bit more established, and don't forget as well her famous interview where she said there were 3 people in the marriage. So, she was somebody who, sadly, Charles didn't really, his intentions weren't honest with Diana. Let's be honest. I mean, he, in a sense, you could say, used her as a surrogate person to have his children, because his main intention always was to go with Camilla. And Diana was more or less left to her own devices, not given the support that she should have been given. And we saw the sad consequences of that. She became lonely, she became sad, she became depressed, she became suicidal herself. And those are the sort of things that Harry has seen through growing up with his mother. And clearly has decided that he does not want that pressure put onto Meghan. And I support him for that.
Yeah. Unpicking a bit about the title there, Carson Wild, thank you, Carson, for coming on. Title comes according to lineage, nothing to do with race in regards to title. William is next in line, and then his children. Simple research. And what they're saying is that once Prince Charles become king, then it goes down a particular lineage, because someone was breaking it down. I just saw what Alison Bristow just said a while ago as well, just bringing in, thank you, Alison. When Archie was born, they made out that it was Harry and Meghan wasn't fussed about the title. The actual truth that came out is the powers that be does not want a black child to a prince title. But then Carson is saying that it has nothing to do with race. Title is title, unless the Queen is going to change something. And I don't.
Yeah, I think Keima, you could probably correct me on that point. But my understanding is, and I think the media have somehow just accusing Meghan of actually lying and deliberately trying to say that he wasn't given a title, or he's not going to be given a title because of his race. But my understanding is, I don't know if is it King George the sixth or fifth, I can't remember which rule is being applied. Under that rule, he is entitled to become a prince when after the succession, when Charles becomes king, right? And my understanding is that they were intending to remove that right, his birthright. So even irrespective of whether Charles become king, they were never intended to give it to Archie. And what Meghan was trying to say, it was never their right to change the rule. It's like moving the goalpost to prevent him from getting becoming a prince anyway. And just like how they changed the rules, Keima touched on that. They changed the rules several times for Kate's children. Several times. The first child was the daughter. Sorry, the daughter. George. So before George was born, they changed the rules to say in case if it's a girl, she will still become a queen, isn't it?
Yeah.
Irrespective. So they actually amend the rules several times to accommodate Kate and William, but they've yet to actually change the rule to in preference or in favor for Meghan and Harry. And in the conversation around that was mainly they were planning to change the rule to prevent Harry from never becoming from actually getting a title. And I think that's what is being misconstrued in the media at the moment.
Yeah.
People are thinking it's because maybe because of his race.
Is there double standards then, as how Kate has been treated and as how Meghan has been treated?
Well, I think that's fairly clear that everyone who has seen the press coverage for Meghan and for Kate can see that it has been a double standard, especially if you look at the sort of more favourable papers that favour supporting Kate. And I think, clearly the reason why Meghan has been picked on, in my opinion, has been because of her race, but also, sadly, I think because she has been outspoken. And, the media don't like people who challenge them, especially magazines or newspapers like the Daily Mail, for example. And that's the reason why they are the cheerleaders for all of this. Meghan has already managed to get them in court and prove them wrong with the disclosing of the father's letter. And in fact, the Daily Mail, for the next 3 weeks on their Sunday newspapers, has to actually put a full apology, which again, they are trying to overturn. So, there has been a double standard. Meghan, every time Meghan does something, it's seen as negative. Every time Kate does something, it's seen as positive. And we can only conclude from that it's because they have something against Meghan because she happens to be from a different race. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the newspapers are all racist, but what I am saying is there has been a double standard in the way that they have reported the stories around Meghan and Kate. And it does seem to be that Kate gets the favourable press. Always, whatever she does, it's always the right thing. Whatever she says is always the right context. Whatever Meghan does is always construed in a different way, and they always have a different slant down to where they want to go with it. So I think it's fair to say I don't think there's any debate that Meghan has been treated unfairly in comparison to the coverage in the press that Kate Middleton has got.
Meghan doesn't look black.
Oh, come on.
No. I'm just
saying, that's just too much.
I'm having a discussion.
Nah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not you. I mean, I've seen this. I mean, I've seen articles of saying that.
Hold on a second. Let's have a discussion. Meghan doesn't look black, yes, but she's black because of the one drop rule. Okay, her mother is black and everything, so Meghan is black. Michelle just brought up a point here, and I'm going to bring this up. Why is black people even having this discussion? I don't even think and even identify Meghan as black. When I saw there lots of vitriol and lots of debate, and I watched the Piers Morgan thing, and a raft of black people have come out, and this major big thing that at one point I thought COVID was gone and COVID was history, and then it became Piers Morgan, and then Piers Morgan is gone. Beresford is now Lord Beresford, was slain the fatted calf or slain the beast, and I think sometimes a lot of people are saying, who cares? Do we care or should we care? These are filter rich people. That's what some say. I mean, it pales into oblivion what they have to their disposal in comparison to the many people who have died through COVID, the many people who are in isolation, the many people who are suffering, going to food banks. These guys are trapped in wealth at the same time. So I think in putting in perspective.
Well, what we're learning from the whole incident or the whole matter here is that race and mental illness doesn't discriminate. So it doesn't matter if you're wealthy or you're rich. It is an issue that you have to confront, and that is the fact. And unfortunately, there are a lot of wealthy people who have committed suicide, and it's partly because we, as in the public, fail to actually provide that necessary support when we should have. We left them up to themselves and say, oh, well, you're rich, you should be able to sort yourself out. And that's quite unfortunate, and we as a people, we need to learn to be kind. There's a mantra going on, be kind. And you need to be kind to people, whether they're rich or whether they're poor.
But Harry also is a patron of some serious mental health organizations. And when it was said that Meghan had to sort from the HR at Buckingham, and they said it's only for persons on the payroll, but Harry is very key involved with Iman William from the time they became patrons.
I think what's happened here, Selborne, they are patrons, but look, sadly, just because they're patrons, it doesn't necessarily mean that the royal family support some of these initiatives. I mean, you have to remember that I've spoken to a number of organizations recently around supporting race and equality, and some of the individuals I've spoken to in those organizations, some FTSE 100 organizations I ought to add, they've told me that their organizations, they make sure that the PR, how can I put this, puts the right slant, that they are seen as a diverse and equality organization, but internally they are not. So just because Harry, or just because whoever is a patron, it doesn't necessarily mean the whole firm is behind them. Clearly, Harry has had experience of this. This isn't the first time he's talked about mental health. William has suddenly pitched up now in the last few years and started to talk about his mental health issues. So I do think that there is an important debate to have around mental health and supporting people who actually, as Meghan has done, has come out and said that she was suffering, and she ought to have been given the support internally. And if as she said, she was seeking to go somewhere to actually get some support, that should have been provided to her, immediately. There shouldn't have been any delay. So I think that was quite a revealing statement. And just going back before you go on to the other guests, just going back to what somebody has mentioned here about why are we talking about Meghan? She's not even black. I think this is sadly a statement that we sometimes hear all too often, that just because somebody is mixed, they're not black. I mean, if I was to me, that statement is disingenuous to the person who is actually black. as I think I shared with you last week, my wife is mixed race. Now, what do I call my wife? Do I say that she's not black? Do I say because she looks the same complexion as Meghan that I should treat her differently? I mean, we have, Meghan is mixed race. Her mother is black, so we have to treat her in that capacity. And I think the reason why we're talking about it is because it is an important point, and I think it does actually go to the wider context of us in the society and why we're still having these debates about equality and race, decades, on and on, on and on, on and on. I mean, why we talked about it last week that we don't see any black people in senior positions in the FTSE 100. Race is an important issue, and I think the debate with Meghan and what she has mentioned in their interview is something that we ought to also discuss, which is what we're doing.
And if I could just add as well, from on the back of what Anthony was saying there, in terms of it's her lived experience, and that is why a lot of black people, particularly black women, identify with what Meghan is saying, because she's actually saying things that a lot of black women could identify with. When work in the workplace, in certain positions, and having to always justify yourself and not understanding why some other people are treated more favorable than yourself, and always having to try harder and work harder to prove yourself, and everything that you try to do doesn't seem to come up right. So her experience alone, you take away her color, complexion, and think about her lived experience. This is exactly what some of the things that you see a lot of black women go through.
Yes. Well, it is interesting. I mean, it's a discussion which is going on. And I mean, you can see Carsten Weil, he's a teacher there. And he's saying, I had 3 black girls arguing about this point on Meghan in my class. 2 of the girls couldn't believe the racism accusation, as they don't even view. I think the point is to establish this. And this is a subjective thing, that nobody knows exactly what's going on in Meghan's mind and Meghan's head. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what Harry really and Meghan actually went through. And I think that is where the compassion is there. That's where I believe Piers Morgan had few points, but it has all been degenerated big time based on the constant battering which has been going on for years, right? But I would draw the point that nobody really knows exactly. It's like racism. Somebody might be a bit strong and dealing with certain. Another person might get offended by something, but it is still racism on a subjective level. How did you feel? And all those other things.
Sibon, can I just comment on that? And I just want to touch on Carsten's point again. It is a very interesting point that he mentioned 3 black girls. So I think there's an issue about color or colorism when it comes to the black community, right? And so you have some black people might say, okay, she's light skinned and she will pass for a white person, so that doesn't really count. In my family, I am completely blessed to have everybody in the pressure on the spectrum of color. So, like my mom, for example, she could pass as a white person, and then you have other people who obviously have a darker type complexion. So I've got the whole all the colors, I think, within my family. But the way how I put it down to, I look at that, I put it down to, if this person who identified themselves as a black person was to walk down the street, and for example, is in contact with, let's say, a police officer, what would the police officer identify them as? And this become very complicated, because a lot of time you find a mixed race person who may not even consider themselves to be black, but the moment they're being stopped and searched by a police, they automatically fall within that category as a black person. Really, because the fact is that white person or that other race sees you as black, whether you want to accept it or not. That is who you are, and they'll treat you in that capacity as a black person. So that's how I actually look at it. View it.
Anthony, with this race and equality debate going forward now, and you're being key in the work that you're doing, especially with the in the boardroom and in the major corporations. How does this help the debate? I mean, because someone actually said recently, I think it's Patrick Vernon, who has been very key in the Windrush, he said the Buckingham Palace need to line up now with other public organizations with equality discussions and training. Like, Anthony, you need to go in there and talk to them. How does this help the debate going forward, race and equality debate going forward?
Well, I think the fact that we're talking about it, the fact it's in the media now, I think, and it's coming up to the anniversary of George Floyd as well, killing. I think the whole debate around race is one that a lot of people are beginning to have in organisations, in households, as we saw in schools. People are having those sort of conversations to talk about some of the difficult things that people of colour who have lived experience, experience all the time. So, it gives us an opportunity to voice some of those experiences and some of the challenges that we face. But I think, simply going through those trainings of unconscious bias and all that sort of stuff, I don't really think that in itself is very productive. I think the main thing that ought to be happening is those organisations that want to be diverse, if they really want to do that, they've got to do so by the actions that they demonstrate, and that's got to be by showing that their board is diverse, by showing that their recruitment policy is based on equality, and by actually having a process and a strategy that is fit for the 21st century, which is around showing that they are inclusive. And I think that, it's actions, all of this nice to have training and all of these nice to have gestures that people put out, as part of their PR because, it looks good. But most people of color are fed up of all of that. What they want is they want to see real action, and they want to see in the boardroom, in senior positions and opportunities for all, regardless of their color. They just simply want a fair playing field for everyone, regardless of color, and they get the roles based on their ability, not on their color.
Keisha, you had some you were doing some bits of work when George Floyd thing happened, where your company asked you your input. How do you see this going forward, like with Buckingham Palace? Do they need to fall in line based on these allegations? Because that's how it starts all the while, isn't it? Allegations in a workplace, something you cannot find exactly what it is, but there's an allegation and one has to get into the source of it. As the Queen says, we're going to work through this privately. Should we have this conversation now? It's all a private conversation. We'll just stop talking about this. Go private.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting that they can use they can say that they will deal with it in a private way. I mean, I just think it's a couple. I think this is a public institution, whether they want to appreciate it or not, and they want to say this is a private family, and therefore we should actually deal with it internally. I don't think that works, frankly, because at the end of the day, we in the UK, as subjects legally, or whatever you want to call us, we are, they should be setting the example. They should be demonstrating leadership. And one of the things that Megan said is that she didn't get the support that she needed or she requested simply because she was not on their payroll, right? And so therefore, absolutely, Silva, and there is a need for change within that institution, within that firm, okay? So it should be applied as in support regarding race relations or equality or whatever the issues they're facing should actually apply whether you are on the payroll or you're not on the payroll, and I think that should be trickled down to all the other institutions within the UK, and at one point, for example, you have the police force, was accused of institutionally racist, and then recently we've got this new head, I forgot her name, something Dick or something, Cressida did.
Cressida.
Yeah, who now say that we're past that stage. Clearly, I don't think so. I think that's another thing, as actually just not dealing with the issues that within the institution. I think we need to get to a place, as in who's in leadership, we need to get to a place to say, okay, even though we're saying it's institutional racism, we all need to actually handle the matter as if we want to actually redress it, not just try to put it away or hide it. So when the Queen or the royal family say it's a private matter, to me it's almost like saying, we're not really prepared to address it. It's something we're just going to set aside, which is quite unfortunate.
Prince William says his family is not racist. I mean, one says that hang on. One says that somebody talk about the baby color, and they say people are saying there's a racism in the family. Well, one of the family members came out and said they're not racist. Who are you going to believe?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's funny, you say that, Stillborn, because when Meghan speak her truth, she got dismissed because she was told that she shouldn't really be speaking like that, and people don't believe what she has to say. But we have William who's going to say, well, we're not racist, and we are supposed to just believe William. So that is quite sort of a funny way of looking at things. But for me, the the institution or the firm or the palace, if you want to put it, is the Queen is the head of state, and they need to, show leadership on the issue, and it comes from the top. And for me, I'm slightly uncomfortable because the Queen is the head of state for a number of countries, 70% of it, which happens to be in the Commonwealth. And if we have this thing of race lingering over our heads now, you want to try to understand how could we have an institution to represent 70%
Yes.
of the Commonwealth who there's deep allegations of racism, and they're just going to be dealing with it privately. So we may not even know what the outcome is.
Yes.
So it's almost like they were just going on as normal, and we're supposed to just accept that. So I'm really troubled by that approach. And to me, I'm just kind of keeping my ears to the ground to understand how would that reflect around the rest of the Commonwealth, because
Yes.
I cannot just imagine that they can just push it under the table,
Yes.
under the carpet, if you want to put it that way, and we're supposed to just accept that it's resolved and the matter is all solved.
Well, I mean, in closing off this one and going to the next chapter, next topic, I believe that the Barbados, something came up in the papers recently saying the Barbados want to remove the Queen as head of state. And I said, they put that back in the paper. When I look, it was from 2020.
2020, September last year.
Jamaica has been talking about that for 25 years now. Everybody's been talking about that. And anytime in the country talk about that, they send one of the royals there and it's all silence. And Harry, the last time they sent to Jamaica, and Jamaica is not talking about it anymore. So I think that's going to be the way forward. And we, as individuals, as countries, we'll have to deal with ourselves, because at the end of the day, trust me, many people don't like when I say it, till thy kingdom come, people will always be racist. But of course, you got laws that can deal with it. And I just think that people need to know who they are and strengthen themselves as individuals, because we can always go through as much as possible. All the best for Harry and Meghan, and may God bless them and keep them, and with their riches, and they're all right. Confined in the
Ultimately, Silbone, this is a PR war, and you know what it is. It ultimately is, and people, you can see a lot of things coming through the media now, particularly in Daily Mail, trying to push back a lot of things that Meghan says. But ultimately, they've done a very, very good job in terms of winning over the PR narrative in the US. So I think if you want to give them some sort of kudos for what they've done, I mean, a lot of people sort of say they don't understand what's coming out of this, but they've, that interview with Oprah has catapulted them on such a mega scale in the US, which makes it absolutely difficult now for the palace to come back and having to redress a lot of the things that come out of the interview.
So therefore, there's no more private life as was requested before. So they are now public people. No more privacy. Okay, moving on. Listen, there's a lady who passed away. I think they found her. But that's the thing about news sometimes. Certain news get slipped away, and this one kept raising its head while Meghan bit was going on. Sarah Everard, this lady who was found in Clapham. Well, they said walking home alone from a friend's house in Clapham, and they can't find her. They found some human remains recently, and Cressida Dicker's been on the TV. They found the remains in Woodland area near Ashford, Kent on Wednesday. The Met, they're saying one of their members also is involved in it. And the big question now is the safety of women, and should certain areas be no-go for women? And there's a big debate going on now. I don't know if you guys have been following it. Keima, I don't know if you have any views on it, because Keisha had said something. You might have some views.
Well, it's really tragic what happened to this young lady. I mean, for me, I thought about it, and the question now is about women's safety, particularly going home at night on their own. And for me, I don't know. Growing up, you're always told if you're going to be out in the evening, make sure you have enough money so you could get a cab to get home rather than walk home. I don't think there is enough information around what happened in between the time from Clapton to Ashford. So it's very, very still, I think there's a lot of information that still need to come out as a result of the story itself. But for me, I just think in terms of women's safety, I don't think, we should take anything for granted. I mean, as much as you might hear that, London is safe and that sort of stuff, for me, I just take precautions. If you're going to be out late at night, make sure you have enough money at the bare minimum to get a cab to go home. That's how I view it.
Okay, look. I mean, I've got to just jump in on this one. First of all, I think it was wrong for the police. I think at this stage, they said they found human remains. It hasn't been determined if
Confirm, yes.
remains for the lady who's gone missing, and I think it then does sort of give a perhaps a false narrative to the family that actually this is their daughter. I know they actually hasn't been found, so I think the police maybe could have used a bit more sensitivity and perhaps waited until they had confirmed if this was the lady who's gone missing. I think the second point I'd just like to make is with regard to women's safety. It's interesting how one story about somebody who was walking home and who has gone missing suddenly creates a national debate around women's safety. I mean, that this particular lady was simply walking home from Clapham at I think it was 8:30 in the evening, where it's not yet that dark, and we don't know what the circumstances were in terms of if she was abducted or whatever. I think in the main, women are safe on the streets. I think the point has just been made that if you are out late, and I mean, as in 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're on your own, maybe leaving an establishment, and you're not with your friends, you should always make sure that you can get home safely, either by a cab or go home with somebody who knows that you're being dropped off if you actually are female. But I think in this occasion, yes, I'm just wondering if there's been a little bit of sensationalism in suddenly one woman suddenly goes missing, and suddenly there's a whole debate around women's personal safety. I mean, what's happened here? I mean, don't get me wrong. This particular lady here, I hope she is found safe and well. But yes, I really don't think that one person who was walking home at 8:30 and has gone missing suddenly creates a situation where women should feel unsafe in the UK as a consequence. Yes. I just don't think so.
Well, one lady earlier tonight on the television with one of an MP and another young girl actually raised that point, but it wasn't politically correct when she actually said what you said. She had to come back and say, well, I'm not saying that women are safe and they shouldn't be concerned, but I'm saying when you work out the figures, just like how we talk about vaccine, when you work out the figures where vaccine is doing well, and you got a few persons may have got some kickback effect, they're saying actually it's relatively safe. And I think that's the point you're actually saying, Anthony, isn't it? That women are relatively safe in London, save for the fact that, of course, you will have cases where women are raped and all those things. But is it the need for such a sensation? I don't know, Keisha, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think we're still in early days. I think we really should be waiting to get more information. But, with conversation around women's safety is, I can't really say, it's we shouldn't be having that type of debate. I think that from a generalized point of view, there's so much issues relating to that women have to deal with, like domestic violence and obviously what's happening in the news relating to this young lady and so on. So I think it's never a bad time to speak about the need to actually provide additional support and talk about women's safety at all. So I think, it's a debate that's been actually in the news right now, and I think we should actually look further into it.
Mm. The name of the gentleman, guess who speaks the truth, is Anthony Francis, for the record. Somebody just asked him.
He has a book out, by the way.
I'm sorry? You're looking up? What is it?
I was looking for this book. I'm looking for his book.
Sorry.
I'm sure I've got it somewhere on my desk.
Listen, I just said, it's not that I think the point you just made there, Keisha, when you said other issues, I think really we have to be careful that women are generally safe in the UK. If this incident did not happen this week, would there be a national debate around women's safety? No, there wouldn't. This is one incident that's happened this week to a lady at home. It doesn't mean
it's the timing as well, Anthony. I think as well, because it was on Monday we had International Women's Day, so all of this, I think, is the timing when all of this is happening. People are talking about women's safety as a whole, but I think it's not just this one incident in itself. It's a lot for the last couple of weeks. We've been hearing as well about domestic violence as a result of COVID and the lockdown, and there's a lot of that going on around. So you know, I think the conversation, if we're having the conversation around domestic violence, you know, women's safety, I think it's never a bad time to have it. I think it's important that we're having these conversations. But you're right. If we weren't having if it wasn't for this particular case, it probably wouldn't be so, you know, well, you know, discussed in the media as such. So, but yeah, I think it's the timing in itself.
Do you think that the media is now somewhat, they don't really know what to report? The COVID has sort of taken things over for a period of time, and they're sort of lost. I mean, someone was actually saying, even the whole thing with Meghan and everything, there's so many sensationalism. Even Don Lemon came in the debate and said, I take it from Meghan and Harry. That's it. I don't need to hear anything else.
Yeah, but look, Selborn, what sells papers? Sensationalism sells papers, right? It's negativity sells papers. Good news doesn't sell papers.
Yeah.
You know, if there was a, you know, the Perseverance landing on Mars, to me that's a good news story. That's a technological innovation story. That's a brilliant story for technology. I mean, that's a fantastic story. How much publicity has that got? I mean, it's literally got, like, you know, one line. This sort of stuff that we're talking about tonight, sadly, this is what sells papers. Somebody goes missing, all of a sudden the media all over it like a rash to suddenly create this big headline, women's safety, right? If all of a sudden a toddler had been attacked by a dog, guess what? The big headline would be, is our dog safe to go out on the street with pit bulls or whatever it is? Yeah. It suddenly becomes sensationalized, because that's what suddenly creates the interest in the media and the news media. So I'm not getting away from the fact that it was Women's International Day, and it's important that we always make sure that women are safe. As the statistics show, women generally are safe, but unfortunately, this is the sort of stuff. The battle against the Windsors, against Harry now. Meghan against the Windsors, the sensationalism regarding this particular story, anything that can create some sort of headline. This is what the media like, because A, it sells papers, and B, it keeps them being relevant in terms of being able to sort of put their headlines out there. The good news stuff, yes. Like for example, the 20 million people plus that have had the COVID vaccine, and the fact that in the early days people were saying, you know, it's not this and it's not that. That suddenly now has gone away. As you say, they're no longer sort of publicizing that as much as they ought to, even though I know they do report on it every night in terms of the statistics. But there's a lot of good stuff that has been happening, which sadly goes under the radar.
And the good news for Jamaica, and what people have been asking for, is that they got a shipment of vaccine from India, and the shipment got a red carpet treatment. The Prime Minister and the Minister of Health and everybody went to welcome the vaccine. So Jamaicans are saying, wow, the vaccine is so important, you know. You know, but I want to go back onto that point, and we hope that somehow the right thing will come out for this lady here who is missing. And, you know, who knows, maybe she found alive. But anyways, there's somebody who was passed away based on the fact that they found bones. But as Alison said, yes, there's a lot of scrambling for sensationalism. With the Piers Morgan gone into oblivion, because I watch GMTV, that program there, Good Morning Britain, is that it? I don't remember. Is that good? Mm-hmm. I watch it because of Piers Morgan, and I don't watch it because of Piers Morgan. Does that make sense? I mean to say, I can't stand him, and I don't watch it. But then I like to watch it sometimes to hear what he has to say. And it's like so much of a sensationalism that there's not effective journalism going on. And as Alison said, a lot of scrambling for sensationalism. How do we combat that? Do we turn it off? Do we turn off the news? Do we dissect it? Or get mature in harnessing the gray areas?
Well, I mean, I was going to let either Keisha or Keima.
No, I was just going to say that we just.
I'll let the ladies. I'll let the ladies.
No, yeah. I think unfortunately what we're seeing is news coverage just seems to lack integrity these days. I know you mentioned Piers Morgan, and you have your reason for watching him, but I've just always considered him to be a big bully anyway. And doesn't matter how much he sprout positive things or if he says anything that you might you agree with when it comes to he always speaks on the government policies and challenge the government, or actually try to keep the government to account for some of the things that they do or actually implement. But at the end of the day, he is a bully, and we need to have more. Sorry,
we need to have more Beresford.
Yeah, happy with that. We need to have proper representation when it comes to the media. If you're going to be on television and you're going to report the news, it has to be presented in a more positive, respectable manner. And unfortunately, what we have, again, you're touching on sensationalism. You rather have the likes of Piers Morgan, who's a big bully,
yes,
frankly, to actually speak on these topics just to sensationalize the news, rather than actually put somebody who can report the news, can make the positive commentary, and leave it as that. And that's why you have all this friction going around regarding Piers Morgan, because at the bottom, the bottom line is you have people saying, "Oh, it's freedom of speech," but the bigger picture is to what expense, right? Growing up knowing and seeing what a bully like in the playground. Every time I look at Piers Morgan, I'm thinking it's another bully that you actually get, that's been given a stage, and that's quite unfortunate.
I think I should just quickly say, Piers Morgan, he is a bit of a Marmite character, but actually, if he actually was to give people time to respond to the questions that he poses, rather than answer it for them, I think actually the actual interview would be a lot better. I think what Piers sadly is or did do to his detriment was that he didn't really give his guests time to answer the questions. He kept on chipping away and didn't really give them that opportunity and space to even reply. And you're right, Selborne. I mean, I did like watching Piers whenever I did see the program, because he was combative. He did ask difficult questions of his guests, rather than the sort of usual, let's go and sit on the couch and just have a nice chat. And that's what people want. They want to hear the difficult questions asked of these.
And he does hold the government accountable a lot, that they fear to go on his show, isn't it?
Correct. And so therefore I will miss that. And we're gonna he's gonna be replaced with perhaps somebody who's less combative. But there has to be impartiality, there has to be objectivity, and there has also to be empathy when you have these discussions with people, because it can't just be your view is the only view, and if it's not your way, then it's the highway. So I think sadly he's learned a harsh lesson, that it's not all about ratings. He's got to also respect the fact that he's giving these people who are his guests an opportunity to come on the program and answer questions, and he should at least let them answer them. So in a way, I think he shot himself in the foot. But I'm sure he'll be back in some capacity. He's going
to be on some Fox Network. But I tell you this, a surprising person.
No, I was going to say with Piers. No, I was going to say with Piers, he has a bit of a advantage as a white male, that he could get up, walk off his set, and quit, if you want to put it that way. And then the following day he's inundated with job offers. Not many people get that. And so, that's why he's able to behave and act the way he does on the shows. But you talk about sensationalism. Sensationalism comes down to what sells newspapers or what the shareholders want. The minute he left, all of a sudden we get reported that, how many 20,000, 40,000 people stopped watching GMB, and, the share prices on GMB has fallen. So it's almost like, oh no, for him to go is a big, big mistakes. And this is the kind of thing that happens a lot of times when it comes to people that are seen as very influential and important. And that's why a lot of these sensationalizing articles that happen, that you see all the time, are there. It's because it's essentially is what people want to see, regardless of what comes out of the person's mouth. It's what people want to see, and what the shareholders what the shareholders want, or what people behind the newspaper want. So that is why we get a lot of these sensational articles.
Do you know that I listen to everybody? I listen to Don Lemon, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. I listen to Joe Biden. I listen to Trump. I listen to Katie Hopkins. I listen to everybody. Katie Hopkins said something today that marveled me, and what she said was, "Listen, can I have a sensible adult conversation?" She said, "Piers, who seems to be now the architect or the vanguard savior of freedom of speech, he was the one who campaigned to get her fired. And she was talking about freedom of speech at that time. So she said, he has no right to have freedom of speech, but he's right to have opinion. Everybody has a right to have opinion, but it's how you do it at the same time. And she's saying he has no right to be the vanguard of that. And she was saying, good on him, because actually he was the one that got her sacked more.
Yeah. It's interesting that she's coming back with that. Unfortunately, I put her in the same category as Pierce. I don't even understand how she has a platform as well.
Exactly.
I'm not. I mean, I'm usually I don't really support censorship as such, but these two people, you know, we don't have time for that.
Well, we stick to Anthony Francis, the truth.
Yes.
Keima
I like Anthony.
And I would just go straight to, and what's wrong with saying it out boldly and forcefully? I believe it's very important to say it freely. I mean, you know, I stayed out of it because my views are very colorful in that, and I said, let me just stay out of this because I might get attacked when I come in with some abstract views.
Yeah. Talking about Katie Hopkins.
But the point about it is,
and Candice Owens, you know,
another one.
Who is that?
Gosh.
Candice Owens.
Oh yes, fantastic lady. You know, I mean, you know.
Really, Silbon? You need to be careful now.
I'm
You're like on a slippery slope.
I'm doing this deliberately. Don Lemon, fantastic guy. Keima, fantastic. Everybody fantastic. What I believe in strongly, everybody has some good in them. And that's what I strongly believe. And I will not, and nobody I believe should say to someone, you can't listen to someone, because in every person, trust me, you can find something, some gem in them. That's my view.
And how do you test that based on what they say? And trust me, if they're not saying something good, there must be something wrong with inside of them. That's my view.
And they may say the same of you as well. don't give Keisha no headache tonight. Anthony, can you wrap up, Anthony? And reset the room. As I say, Clubhouse, reset the room. Well, anyway, guys, it was a wonderful week, and thanks for all the comments, and those on Instagram have been very proactive over there, and on Facebook, Alison, Michelle, DN. We won't upset Keisha today, but opinions are opinions, and we've got to be able to say it. Silbert, another evening, let's talk about freedom of opinion versus freedom of speech. That's the topic there.
That's a good point. Yes, I think we touched on that a couple months ago. But
well, he wants it back. Marlon wants it back, so Marlon got to get it. So we got to do a show on that particular point. Team Keisha, oh, give me a break. It's Team Anthony. Alison, can you just type Team Anthony, please? Or we're back again with this Team Keisha rubbish. You know what I mean? You know, I walk off my show now.
You're just jealous. You're not Pierce. You're not allowed to walk off your own show. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, thank you guys. It was a good show, and please remember to like and share the show, and we will come back again next week with Anthony. Keima came back tonight because we had to match the salary of Pierce Morgan, but guess what? We were able to match it because Pierce Morgan is not in a job. That is how she came back. Okay, I'm waiting for Team Anthony. Okay, that's what I want to do. Team Anthony.
That's what I like to see.
That's what I wanted to see, and then I can go now. Team Anthony, and also
love it.
Teams. I'll go on this one. Team Silvern. Fantastic. There we go. Anyway, guys, have a good night, and thank you so much for coming on, and all the best. If you just stay right there, walk good. Thank you, guys. All the best. Peace out.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
And let me just sign up, off and out. Go there, and